Someone once said it is better to have campaigned and finished than never to have campaigned at all. No shit, Captain Obvious. Let's talk about Out of the Abyss, because we just finished it today on WebDM. So Jim Davis.
Yep.
Out of the Abyss.
Out of the Abyss.
We finished it.
Yes, we did.
We slogged into the depths of hell, and we came back, technically Abyss, but you know what I mean.
It was an interesting campaign premise to kind of start with, an entire campaign set in the Underdark. You know, originally I thought it was going to feature demons more prominently than it actually did.
Well, featured demon lords.
Featured demon lords. I kind of figured you'd be fighting demons from like level 1 onwards, which you have an opportunity to, but it was really more of a sort of a showcase travelogue of the Northern Underdark,
right?
In a way that I haven't really seen since maybe Night Below, or even just kind of some of the adventures that feature the Underdark heavily in first and second edition, Vault of the Drow, Shrine of the Kuo-toa. So it's kind of a highlight of everyone that's in the Underdark, all the societies and communities.
Yeah. Come see Bligdenstone today.
Come see Bligdenstone. It's covered in slime and mucus. But at the same time, I took it and I was like, wait a second, we just ran Tyranny of Dragons.
Right.
This is the same world. This is the same setting.
Yeah.
And even before we decided to do the Out of the Abyss as an evil game using almost entirely Underdark races, I was kind of like, how is this going to work with the fact that the last year the north of Faerun has been fighting a dragon war, and all the destruction and devastation that's caused. Now there are actual demon lords in the Underdark. So already from the beginning, I'm reading this and like, how do the other events that we've played through in Forgotten Realms affect this campaign, and sort of what is it going to look like? And so whenever you guys proposed, number one, everybody wanted to run an evil campaign.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. I mean, we've mentioned it before, but choosing to run an evil campaign.
Yeah,
I thought that was a nice slant on it, because hey, it's their home too.
It's their home too, and it's a great adventure to run an evil themed campaign in, because at the end of the day, even evil aligned characters don't want these demon lords running around the Underdark, driving everyone mad, creating a real problem for everyone. So you can have an evil themed game in an otherwise traditional Dungeons and Dragons adventure path style campaign.
We were the lesser of two evils.
In many cases, yes, the lesser of two evils, until maybe the very end, in which when you guys become the villains.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And then the second thing that occurred to me was, I looked at it and I was reading other people's sort of initial experiences with the game, and a lot of people were saying, no, not going to allow Underdark races. That defeats the purpose of the game. Sort of fish out of water element to it, and all I could think of was just like, that's very limiting. Yeah. So we ended up playing with initially an orc, a drow, a dwergar, and a human vampire, newly minted vampire, who found herself in the Underdark. And so that worked really well as an initial setup, and then as we kind of progressed, the orc dropped out, and Grackle's Tug takes a caravan to the surface and is replaced by the Aasimar Death Cleric, who my brother played with a very weird and interesting take on Skeletor, basically.
Yeah. Brad Pitt Skeletor.
Brad Pitt Skeletor. So it was just a weird campaign, and so I really just sort of took it as more of a source book for running your own adventure in the Underdark, as opposed to here are the points that you have to hit, and we'll drag you along this path.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is we talked about like Rise of Tiamat and how completely changed that when you took over Tyranny of Dragons, completely changed that.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Hot DQ.
Hot DQ.
But how you changed it in order to work with us in the campaign that you wanted to do. So what did you do in Out of the Abyss?
So for number one, because you guys were playing characters who weren't trying to make it to the surface, a lot of the impetus in the adventure, which is like, okay, you get to Grackle's Tug, they're going to be there for a couple of adventures or a couple of sessions, they're going to figure out what's going on in the Whirlstone Caverns, and then they're going to move on to Bligdenstone or Neverlight Grove or somewhere else, with the eventual aim of getting out of the Underdark. Because that never happened, we were able to get to Gracklestug, and it was like, okay, we're safe from the drow. You've shaken your drow pursuers.
Yeah.
Now you're in a place where you can start to build your base of power. And so instead of rushing through Gracklestug and not letting that mature and develop, we spent 3 in-game months there, where you guys became the disciples of Thimbershode, the Red Dragon there, thoroughly cleared out the Whirlstone Caverns and made them kind of your base of operations for a while. Emma's character switching classes under the guise of the Gray Ghosts, sort of capturing her and brainwashing her into being sort of a double agent for them for a while. There was a lot that went on, and sort of really playing up the fact that Demogorgon's influence over the city was causing this otherwise orderly but paranoid city to be divided in two. And then, of course, the race war that your character started was sort of the icing on the cake of that.
Jim, first race war, huh?
First race war.
The point you said about seeing the influence of Demogorgon, that's the one thing I actually liked about it, and I think if you just rushed through that, you wouldn't be able to kind of see that develop. Like, we could see the madness start to spread in the Blade Bazaar and then move out from there and then move into other aspects of the city. You actually get to see that happen over time, and we started investigating, figuring out what it is, and we found that one group that was trying to turn the giants.
Yeah, they're trying to turn the giants.
So crazy.
So I mean, even though everybody is a right bastard in the campaign, and it's an evil campaign, the goals were the same and the outcomes were the same.
Right.
So the Council of Savants, who are secretly manipulating events in Gracklestug to create this strife, you guys stopped them, sort of inadvertently at first, making enemies of them. And then eventually, like, striking into the Hall of Sacred Scrolls and taking them out. I think wiped out all of them but 7 of the initial 30-something members of the council. So that ended up being the case. You're siding with Thimbershode against the Keepers of the Flame. Him bringing him the dragon egg was one of those things that I was surprised by, because I kind of thought, like, okay, it's a dragon egg. Usually in a campaign, players love dragon eggs. They're going to keep them, try to raise that dragon themselves. And so I was surprised whenever you guys were like, oh yeah, we'll just give this red dragon the red dragon egg.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah.
We got stuff to do. We can't be raising a dragon.
You can't be raising a dragon,
But,
particularly not a red dragon.
To me, like, at first we were going to try to hide it away.
Yeah.
I remember that because we were heading back to the inn, and then I forgot who it was. I was like, wait a minute. They're going to be after us immediately.
Right.
This city's about to get locked down. If the Keepers of the Flame are the one, is that right?
Yeah,
Keepers of the Flame, they were the one behind holding it.
Yeah.
If now they know that it's taken, they're going to lock this down. So we're like, no, we need to get to Thimberchode. That's the greater thing. We're working for him anyway.
Give it to him, and that to me, in my mind, that said, okay, he now trusts the party, sees you guys as useful allies in his war with the Keepers, and imparts some knowledge, information, some boons, as it were, to everybody, some items. That's where you pick up. That's where Rolvian picked up Black Razor. That's where Tony, the Vampire Necromancer, picked up the Demonomicon.
It was a boon and a crutch.
Yes. It was also a good place to just, like, introduce some interesting items into the campaign, because I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to run a game again. And so there's some items in the DMG that I wanted to try out, and what would happen if you just plop those into a character's lap at 8th level. What happens to them? Well, we see things got to eat every 3 days.
Yeah, you got to feed that sword, baby.
Yeah,
and you got to start a race war to do it.
And if you have to start a race war to do it,
in a pure in-game sense, he was basically a psycho. Right. But if you want to just, but hey, in his mind, they're just Darrow. They're crazy anyway. Yeah. What are they going to do? Kill each other?
What are they going to do? Yeah, of course. So I think that, and I really let you guys drive the campaign from that point on. So up until you guys get to Gracklestug, it was by the book.
Yeah.
Escape Velkenvelv. The Drow catch up with you almost immediately. You guys had, I think, at one point, 13 NPCs with you, like all of the NPCs from the prison cell.
The Prince.
The Prince Durindil, the Quaggoth. I think everyone but the Drow who'd already overcome to the Spore Servants. He died in the prison cell, but everyone else gets out, and then just through kind of sheer luck or
It was a little cat and mouse.
Little cat and mouse there for a while, but the Drow came after you with everything they had, recaptured most of the NPCs, almost got Emma's character until she darted down a side tunnel. And then it was on to Sloobadoop, where Demogorgon shows up. You get your first taste of that.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, and then really everything from Sloobadoop to Gragglestug was by the book, rolling for the random encounter every day, what happens. But once you got to Gragglestug, I really just kind of set the book aside and used it occasionally to reference sort of what was going on and let you guys drive the action. So in that case, it was wanting to destabilize the city. Which at one point I thought you guys were going to actually take over the city and like overthrow the Deep King and sort of,
Jim, we're from America.
Right.
We just destabilize regions. We don't. No, that's sorry. Don't mean to get political.
Right. But then you guys decided later on, okay, you guys had developed a bond with the little Myconid guy. Forget his name.
Stool?
Stool, yes.
Yeah.
Wanted to take him back.
Buddy.
Yeah, take him back to Neverlight Grove. There were a couple of characters were really excited about doing that. And then from there, it became sort of a natural progression of you guys need information about something. So you're going to go to the library and ask your questions at the library. And so the goal of the game isn't so much to escape to the surface and solve these demon lords, but became sort of based around your character and sort of Audie's characters, get to Minza whether it's to get into the Sorceress Academy to steal the spell knowledge they have or to help destabilize the city was one reason. But also the overall motivator of just getting into the city to seek revenge against House Bainray became sort of the focus of the campaign.
Yeah.
And then sending the demon lords back is just a means to an end.
Right.
Having them summoned in Minza.
Well, it's a way to weaken the city, thus weakening House Bainray.
Yeah. And so really everything after you guys left Gracklestug after that 3-month time, and of course the war with the undead that Orcus had been flooding the tunnels with, that was another thing that I did. I didn't have Orcus thousands of miles away like the book suggests. To me, it was just he's in part of the lower dark, and I wanted to incorporate him more into the adventure. First off, because we had a death cleric and a necromancer. I feel like Orcus should be more there. But at the same time, there was a lot of things you guys could have done that we didn't do. You guys never went to Bligdenstone.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go there just because read all the Driss books. So
yeah, just because you want to visit there. Although the party that you guys were playing, it would have been difficult to deal with the deep gnomes. They would have taken one look at a group of Drow and Dwergar, and then the two human-looking people with them, and been like, I don't think so.
One's a Death Cleric. One is obviously not alive.
Yeah, one is obviously not alive, quite pale, and yeah. So the fact that it was an evil campaign was a fun take on it. The fact that you guys were playing Underdark races for the most part was really fun. And then, we wrapped it up, and really kind of wrapping it up, it was almost sort of return to the book.
Yeah.
So we're kind of able to use the information there from Minza, although I wasn't really able to flesh out encounters in the city as much as I would like. The chapter in Out of the Abyss on Minza is sparse but packed with really cool details. There's a ton of just random encounters of like, here's a drow parade, as one of the drow houses sort of parades its power and prestige through the city, or just the little snippet in there that was just like after.
Just imagine like a drow marching band. You got some twirlers up there with like whatever. Here's a drow parade.
The beat of majorettes.
Sorry.
That's what I wanted to try. Like, okay, what would that look like?
Yeah.
But also
Drow Pride Parade.
A Drow Pride Parade in Minza. But also, there's a little throwaway line in there about how after Demogorgon's initial rampage through the city, a lot of drow were using that to settle old scores. And so it would have been, I was preparing for some adventures where just like minor drow noble houses approaching the party and like, hey, you're outsiders. I need you to go off this person for me.
Yeah.
They can't know about it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Instead, the way we approached it of sneaking in, sneaking out, trying to fool Jarlaxle and the rest of Brigandarth, and then eventually leading an assault on House Bainray. Obviously very high level stuff by that point. But it made for a very different ending.
Because when we assaulted them, we were level
16 or 17.
16, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was kind of, that was interesting to try to plan for, using an old, a 3rd edition module, sort of converting it to 5th edition and updating it so that it was more Lolth focused rather than undead focused.
Right.
It made for an interesting end to the campaign. And so, I don't know, we kind of touched on it. We kind of get the demon lords out of the abyss, have them rampage through Menzoberranzan, but at the same time, the focus of the campaign was revenge against the Drow.
Right. Well, but let's not gloss over the demon fight.
Right.
Because that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, and
because we got to roll randomly for our demon lord.
Yes.
I got you know who.
Yes, you know who.
I mean, you know who.
You know who.
Sure.
And then, so the ones that the players had, Dweeblix, you know who, and Grozitz, then the others were controlled by me. And it's just, you don't really realize, first off, legendary actions and resolving every legendary action that takes place is like having rounds within rounds. And so, of course, we're like
within rounds.
Right. Becomes sort of a Russian nesting doll of actions.
Yes. No, it was because I was keeping meticulous notes to keep us straight.
Right.
So all right, everybody legendary actions
okay,
in this action.
In this action, okay, so and so just finished.
Yeah.
And so it becomes first off, it both didn't take as long as I thought it would, and yet at the same time took much longer than a normal fight would.
Well, I think the whole combat was 6 rounds.
Yeah, it ended up being 6 rounds of combat for...
Yeah, but it took us...
maybe 3 hours
3 hours to do that. 6 rounds of combat in.
Yeah.
And of course, Demogorgon was the one last one.
Of course, Demogorgon is the last one standing. He really is kind of a beast. Although I do kind of think that a party of 20th level characters would be just fine against that aspect of Demogorgon, as presented in the stats of Out of the Abyss and the appendix. Most of the demon lords are going to be a party of 15th level or above is going to be fine against them if they're taking one-on-one. Obviously, all of them at once. Not an ideal situation. And I do think Orcus, out of all of them, is the one that's probably the most deadly because, hey, he's got 500 hit points worth of undead that he can bring with him. That's Demi-Liches, Draco-Liches, Death Tyrants, Death Knights, all of those kind of things that he can bring with them that beef up his power. Mm-hmm. I mean, bring 8 Demi-Liches with him if he wants. It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I think that that fight was really fun, and I don't know if we ever posted the pictures from that game on our Facebook page, but we kind of did it out sort of like a battle royale sort of fight as you know who in Baphomet crashed through a neighborhood of.
I kicked his ass.
I
would have killed him in like 2 rounds, but I missed that second trip attack.
Missed that one attack.
Yeah. So because he couldn't use his actions to hit me.
Right.
Because in that first round, I rocked him. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Then I died like a bitch.
And so, I mean, that's what happens. And then eventually...
But then we played that fight. Come back next week, and then we play the characters running at the feet of all of this going on above us.
Right.
We're the humans in the Godzilla movie.
Basically.
At the heel of Godzilla.
Yeah, as these two sort of bestial demon lords fight each other in this neighborhood or dodging the path of slime that Dweeblix had left. And I wanted that, that one was going to be, there were a couple of encounters there that I didn't really get to play up, or rather you guys bypassed very neatly. One of them was an encounter against like 50 CR-1/8 mains. Yeah. I think it was. And so in my mind, I was just kind of like, all right, this is probably a trivially easy encounter, but what would it look like if you threw literally like 50 or 100 small little creatures at a high level party? Like what kind of damage could they do? And it's one of those things where reverse gravity certainly clears out most of them. But if they were able to swarm you and grapple you and do their little D4 hit points or hit damage around, it could become a problem. Mm-hmm. Those were the kind of encounters that I was looking for as you made your way across the city, and then of course having that modified adventure as you assault the premier drow house of Menzoberranzan. Yeah,
which we pretty much shook to the roots.
Right, and so in that respect, it was one of those cases of earthquake, right? I mean, at that level, the protections on the city that protect it from earthquakes don't matter because it's like, oh, whatever. The guys casting earthquake are already flying. What does it matter if reverse gravity's cast on them? and then it's like, all right, 5 earthquakes that you guys cast over the course of 2 days. All of them in the noble quarter of Menzbranson. And at that point, you wiped out, I think, I forget which houses it was, but 3 of the houses completely wiped out entirely. 4 if you count Bainray. And then the remaining 4 obviously severely damaged and hurt because now the demons are in there with them and they're having to fight for their life that way. So, I mean, I had ruled that by the end of the campaign, or the end of that 3 adventure arc, that Menzbranson was so destroyed and just so wrecked that it ceases to be a power in the north, that Lulf's grip on it has been broken, and that groups like Bregendarth or the minor noble houses are sort of fighting over the scraps of the Drow city. Right. And when last I asked Emma about it, she was planning on having her Dwergar paladin, her Oathbreaker paladin, lead a Dwergar army into Menzbranson to kind of take over the city. Right. And that's what she was going to do with Brondel. But yeah, it was just a great campaign, even though it wasn't really anything like the adventure said it should be, which in a way is fun. I mean, these books are there for, the adventure books are there for you to inspire you. Yeah. And you take something like Out of the Abyss, which is 2 whole chapters are just like how to run an adventure in the Underdark, and then the rest of it is just, okay, what happens when they get to this location? Or a game like Princess of the Apocalypse or Storm King's Thunder, where it's sort of like a big sandbox and the party can go wherever they want and there's something happening there, and then there's sort of this overall theme of the adventure going on. These adventures and these campaigns, they don't have to be played by the book. Right. You can take them and mash them up and cut them apart and rearrange them according to what your table needs at that moment, and not have to just really follow them and devote yourself to them. It's a lot of fun to just take it and go, what would this look like for my campaign?
That's the lesson I learned with trying to run Hot DQ at first.
Yeah, so you can try to run it strictly by the book, and sometimes that can be really fun, and for short stints, that can be really fun. But for a whole campaign that's going to span 15 to 20 levels, you really got to make it your own. Yeah. And not just, first off, there's not enough material in the book to give you the XP needed to get all those levels. You're going to have to add something anyway.
Well, okay, but final thoughts on, your thoughts on Out of the Abyss, as far as what's presented, did it give you enough of what you needed, or did you have to make anything up? I mean, what's your thoughts on the book itself?
Gotcha. So, there's pretty extensive rules for random encounters as you're traveling through these distances in the Underdark, and I like the way that they sort of abstract the travel through these tunnels. But at the same time, at best, you're going to get a single encounter every other day or so. So these are encounters that the party can nova on. They don't need to worry about their resources at all. Right. So for DMs who are maybe preparing to run it and they're more used to having multiple encounters in a day or multiple encounters between long rests, the random encounters that they'll come across in Out of the Abyss, the party's probably going to just wipe the floor with. They can just go all out because it's like, oh, we're just going to rest in the next bit. So I would recommend if you're going to really use the travel rules there, that you sprinkle in more opportunities for random encounters. As it stands, the Underdark is a very empty place. You could go days on end without seeing anyone else. It doesn't give the sense of demon-filled tunnels that are under constant siege. So I would increase the chance to trigger a random encounter. Go through the DMG and look and see their Underdark or subterranean encounters. What are other creatures you can add in here? Go through the monster manual and just look and go, I want this, this, and this to be in here. Add those to your random encounter table. Certainly demons, particularly the lower level ones. So you really, really build in the fact that the Underdark is under siege.
Well, yeah, demons. I mean, like animals in a forest fleeing a forest fire. You would think that there'd be all the Underdark animals coming from wherever running away from this, so you'd have more chances to encounter something.
Some of the encounters in the later chapter of the book, so in Out of the Abyss, at around 8th level, the characters break through the surface. The adventurer recommends that you give them a few weeks of sort of downtime to take care of business or whatever before literally Brunor Battlehammer summons them to Gauntlgrim and says, hey, we need you to go back down in there.
With his one-horned helm.
Yeah, and so I was kind of, after that, the encounters they don't seem up to snuff for your typical mid-tier, say 10th level and above party.
Right.
So I definitely think that DMs, when they're reading those encounters for the second half of Out of the Abyss, should look hard and say, do I need to beef this up somehow? I would recommend Denizens of D&D products on the DM's Guild. There's some sort of monster manual supplements. They're either pay what you want or super cheap, and there's one there that's just like 30 new drow or something like that, or like maybe not quite 30, like 12. No, don't exaggerate. All right, I'm prone to exaggeration. There's 100 new drow in this PDF, but it gives you a bit more range for what to do. There's one that expands on the NPCs, giving you higher level NPCs that you can just slap the drow traits on. That's what I used for the attack on Menzoberranzan, so that you were fighting like CR 12 and above drow instead of what's in the monster manual. There are things that add new monsters that just aren't in the monster manual to your Underdark game. So any of the monster manual supplements on the DM's Guild, there's a lot of them. I used a lot of those. Denizens of D&D were some, and then NPC expansion was another. Yeah. I'll put in the comments what they actually were for anybody who's interested in it, and give props to the people who on DM's Guild. But that's what I used, and I would recommend that DMs do that. That they just look and see, what are some monsters in the monster manual that they haven't had a chance to use. See if there's a way to work those into the adventure. If you're talking about some of the encounters in Menzoberranzan, these are the drow. Like they are magic. They're a magical society. There should be golems everywhere. There should be magical constructs, summoned creatures. Right. There should be spell casting going on all over the place. And so an attack on one of those, even if it's just like sneaking across the city, the adventure recommends like, it's some hobgoblins and a gargoyle, and like one of the CR 1/4 drow or something like that. It's like it needs to be a bit beefier than that. So definitely beef up the encounters in the second half of the adventure. Where's the beef? Overall, I really liked it. I thought it was good. I liked it a lot more than Tyranny of Dragons, and it's sort of the second adventure we've played from Wizards of the Coast. And so I'm glad to see that as each adventure comes out, they seem to be improving just a little bit, learning what makes the system tick, what makes for a successful adventure book. If they're only going to put out 1 or 2 of these a year, then they need to be useful for everyone who's running one of these games. Yeah.
Can't wait for that Storm King.
Yeah, can't wait for Storm King. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, and hopefully, even if we don't get to play the full campaign, we can use some of the material in it for our own games. But yeah,
cool. We just talked for like 28 minutes.
Oh, really?
We talked for almost a half an hour.
Jeez, okay.
I mean, you want to talk about loosened up? I'll tell you what, guys. You did it.
You did it. Thank you very much for getting us to 10,000.
10,000 subscribers. Couldn't have done it without you. Keep telling your friends about us. Keep sharing the videos. Keep coming back every week because we're going to be here for you like you've been for us. Thank you so much.
I never thought in a million years anyone would want to listen to my random ramblings about Dungeons and Dragons. So I appreciate the love and the support.
Well, except for me.
But yeah, but that's a given.
Yeah.
So appreciate the love and support, and here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Where are we?
We are at the YouTube
studio.
The YouTube Open Space Studio at Google Fiber here in Austin, Texas. This is the El Rey room. These are replicas from Kill Bill and other Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yeah, and this is what I'm going to use to cast my hex on you.
You put a hex on you. Anyway,
Pretty sweet.
so keep coming back. We love you, and keep rolling, nerds.